Hi, I wanted to do a video today talking about some of the art tools that I use in almost all the pieces that I make. Some of the tools that have been really helpful with different things and how I use them. Just give you an idea of what I use for drawing, what I use for painting. But yeah, someone might find this helpful. When I first started, I wasn't really sure which tools to get and which would be the most important or valuable to me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm using now. This is a very small version. I probably have other ones here. Yes, I use, oh no, same size. I use, you can tell, these pencils all the time. They come in a pack that has a variety of different weights. And so the B is a softer pencil. The H's are harder pencils. It just impacts how much lead is getting onto your paper. I think that's how you'd say it. The softer pencil will leave darker marks. And so when you're doing drawings and you want to just sketch something out that you're probably going to erase later or cover with a lighter paint, you want to use an H pencil. I think it goes all the way to 6 or 8. I know that the B ones do. I always use 2H. I find it really great. It's a little bit lighter than an HB, which is right in the middle. But yeah, I absolutely love it. See, this is a B, so just above an HB, and it's soft, just one pencil softer. And I love these. I've always used this brand. I actually don't know what the brand is called. I don't keep the tins. I'm due for a new piece, or a new set, sorry. And then one other thing that I use, see, this is a 6B, and I don't know if you'll be able to tell on the camera, but you can almost see how much more shiny that pencil is compared to this one. It's just, you can almost see the difference when you look at them. You can tell it's a softer lead. You can feel it for sure when you're drawing with it. But these ones are my favorite. Staedtler, that's who makes them. And then I also use a lot for my blending is just these. I actually don't know what these are called. I completely forget. But it's basically, I think it's rolled paper. So it's really, really tightly rolled, and you can use it. You can tell I haven't cleaned this one. It blends really well. So I use this quite a bit when I'm doing drawings. And then just to clear this off for a fresh start, you just use a light sandpaper, and it'll just rub off the top layers. It'll like clump together. It's kind of like a soft, kind of like a lint maybe, but lighter. And you can just sand it down and then shape it into the point that you need. But these are great, and you can get them in a lot of different sizes. I think this might be the only size I have on hand right now, but I have some smaller versions of these as well. They're phenomenal. Another thing that I use, and it's in a messy state because it was in with the sharpening shavings, is a kneadable eraser. And so these are really great to take away light layers of pencil. So when you're drawing and you want to erase some of it because you're going to do ink over top, or you're going to do some painting over top, but you still want to be able to see it, these are really great to just either rub or dab your piece. If you're using a heavier leaded pencil like a softer B, I would recommend dabbing rather than, because the lead is so soft, it kind of streaks, I've noticed. That's happened to me a few times on pieces. So I usually just dab my pencil piece or my pencil markings away, and it'll just leave a really light outline. It's like when you're in Photoshop and you tone down the opacity and things get like you touch you use the pencil to make a mark, and then it comes out lighter because it's not as thick. That's what this is kind of great for. Another thing that I swear by and I use constantly when I'm doing pieces for tiny details is one of these. This is Mono Zero Elastoma eraser. It's just a very fine tipped eraser. It's super helpful. I do have a couple just like normal size erasers. This one's almost gone. But this one is really great for those tiny details. And then the refillables are just like a mechanical pencil, and then you just push it out and can push it back in. It's phenomenal. This has saved me a lot. Yeah, I think that's most of my stuff for pencils. I do also have some of these, which is a graphite pencil. Well, the other ones are graphite as well, but it's It's another brand, I guess. This one is Faber-Castell. These ones are also very nice, similar to the other ones that I showed you before. They're really great. Yeah, I think that's all I have for, oh, and then I'll talk a little bit about the paper that I use. So I almost exclusively buy Arches paper. I really love their textured paper, and I find it quite reasonably priced out here in Canada. So this is a piece I'm working on right now, but I'll show you these are the, that's what I buy if I buy a full sheet. The full sheets out here can be range anywhere between like $8 and $13. I don't know the exact size. I have a full sheet already, and then I just cut it down. What I usually recommend to use for cutting your paper is an X-Acto knife with one of those, I think it's silicone or something, those flexible pads to put underneath to do the cutting. It works a lot better than scissors. I've been really lazy lately and using scissors because I need to get a new X-Acto knife, and you can tell the difference. It just doesn't make such a clean line. Line it up with a ruler, run an X-Acto down it, and you'll get a perfect cut every time. For my painting, and I do use these for drawing as well, although I haven't done a lot of pencil work recently, but for my painting with acrylics, with watercolors, but I mostly use acrylics, I actually buy this pad. It's watercolor paper, and it's 140 pounds. I love this brand, Canson. They're great. This paper is beautiful. It's cold pressed, which means it'll have a texture to it. When the paper is labeled hot pressed, that means it's going to be completely smooth. There's going to be no texture to the paper. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on here. You can a little bit, but it's really nice. It's light. It's not too much texture for the pieces I'm doing. I don't really need the texture. I just really love this paper. I could get the other stuff as well, but it's nice to have it available because if I decide to do a piece where I highlight the texture of the paper, then I already have it on hand. So really big fan of these sketch pads, and they come in a variety of sizes. They're usually a little bit larger than a standard frame size, and so I always just tape around the edges, half inch all the way around, so it goes down to that, like this is 11 by 15, and so the tape will make it 11 by 14. That's not true, it'll make it 10 by 14. But you can just tape a couple sides so it makes that standard frame size if you'd like to make that option. Makes it easier for people purchasing, I feel, because then they don't have to get a custom frame. They can just go out and get a standard frame. But if you want to do your own frames, which I'm hoping to do coming up, then that will make it all the easier. Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about the paint tools that I use and what my recommendations are for different things. This is just based off my personal experience, but I've told you the kind of paper that I use. That's the sketchbook, and then Arches is the sheets that I usually buy every once in a while. And I can start with my paintbrushes. I am a big fan of, you'll have to forgive me, some of these are in not great shape. They need to be clean. This one is Princeton. I love these paintbrushes. They work really well. I'm really happy with them. They've lasted me a really long time. I have also purchased these ones, which is, it says Gold Sable. I don't know if that's the company, but they're these long blue ones. These ones have lasted me a really long time, and I actually really like the longer brush. Going from a long brush back to a short brush feels a little bit odd, but I really enjoy the longer brushes. And then this one I just bought recently, which is Mitelon Filbert. I don't know which one's the company. I really love this paintbrush. This has been beautiful to use. The bristles are holding up really well. I'm not married to any one brand. I'd like to try a couple. I do most often buy the Princeton brand. But now that I'm really into longer brushes, I've been buying different brands just to test those out. But usually when you go to the art store, they have sections of brushes. You can have, some are great for watercolor, some are great for oil, some for acrylic. A lot of them are great for a mix of mediums. But you can always ask, usually they have labels on them, but you can always ask the people working there. They're usually quite knowledgeable. And then I want to talk a little bit about canvases. I do most of my work on paper, but I do often do canvas as well. I usually buy ones that are pre-gessoed. If you don't, you can buy something like this. This is from Golden. You can get it from Liquitex. I think a bunch of companies make them. It's just gesso, and this goes on your canvas to give it some structure and sturdiness and to help the paint adhere to the canvas, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. But I always buy pre-gessoed pieces. Now I just have gesso on hand because I use it for my clay pieces before painting them. A couple layers of gesso because that will help the paint adhere to the clay. And for canvases, usually what I would recommend, what I like better than the thinner ones, are the thicker canvas. They look a little bit more nice, like professional, I guess. Not to say that this one doesn't, but it just gives the piece a nice structure to have that thicker canvas. It would always be my recommendation for pieces you're selling to use the thicker one. I had these 4 on hand from a sale a long time ago that I picked them up from because it was a package, I think, of 4. And it was on for a really good deal, and there's nothing wrong with a canvas like this. I still have used them lots in the past. I do just like the look better personally of the thicker ones. And then the piece behind me just here, this one's done on a wooden canvas, and you don't have to gesso those when you get them. You can paint directly on the wood. You can also choose to coat your pieces on canvas. You can do that with paper as well. There are some spray top coats that you can get, and they're super easy to use. Just make sure you do them in a ventilated area. I don't spray my pieces. It's not necessary. But if you'd like, you can get like a shiny or a matte finish depending on what look you're going for in your piece, but it is, it does make it look really nice after, but it's not necessary. You can still get a lot of pop from that. You can also use a varnish, and pour that on top for your top coat, and that will give it a nice shine. Yeah, just depends on the look you're going for with your piece. Another thing that I use all the time is painter's tape, and you can get this. I get this at the dollar store because it's cheap and you can get a lot of rolls for a really good price. I use this on almost every piece I do. I usually always use a border. If I don't, then sometimes I'm just taping part of the piece up to work on one piece or flipping it around and taping it a certain way. You can use it on the paper. It will not lift your paint. It doesn't have a very strong adhesive, but it works good because if you have it flat and directly on the piece, then you won't get paint going underneath it as well. So you can section off a few pieces. For example, I can show you this piece that I just finished, and so I sectioned all this off just with that same painter's tape, same with the edges, and then painted the pink, took that off, and then taped it up and painted the blue. I've ripped this into like such small pieces to cover curves and things like that. It can take forever, but it's super helpful. You can also get another tool. It's like a liquid version of tape kind of, and you can put that on your piece and then that just peels away after. I've never personally used it, but I've seen it in videos. It looks incredible. I'm gonna try to go and find it and give it a try because it'll help you with those like odd shaped pieces. If you're doing like clouds, for instance, and you want to block off certain areas, that's such a fluid motion. It's less lines and rigidity. So using something like the tape would take forever to tape it up and get those curves, whereas something like that can just be put directly onto your piece. What else? I will talk a little bit about the paint that I use. I'm, again, just not picky. I love Golden. It's actually such a nice paint quality. It lasts for a really long time. The cheaper the paint you go, not to say that your piece will look cheap, but the paint might rub off on things. It might fade faster. It's just not as high quality. So if you can splurge on anything, I would go, don't get cheap brushes because cheap brushes just will not last you, but good brushes can be like $8, not a ton. So get minimally what you need and kind of splurge for the good paint, and then just be very cautious of how much you're using. I only ever take a little bit out at a time. And yeah, so a couple brands that I really like besides Golden are Winsor & Newton and Liquitex. And there's different grades of Liquitex for sure. I've seen less expensive you get, the less like professional quality the paint is considered. And good quality paint just lasts really long. It can, you know, make it through more sun damage or more, depending on where you're putting your pieces. It just has a vibrancy for longer. So it is genuinely worth the money. You'll notice that the more pure colors are worth more than things like the hues. The hues will always be a little bit cheaper, and you can get close versions. This is cobalt blue hue instead of just cobalt. Another tool that I love to use, and just reference back to, I look at it for almost every piece I do, mostly because I work in bold colors and I'm not really mixing a palette to match. I'm using more color blocking than anything, especially in some of the pieces that I'm doing now. But it's a color wheel. I use this all the time. I think it's super handy to consider the colors for the palettes that I'm using. It has a ton of information about different color palettes and adding white and black. This one talks about, you know, complementary colors and split complementary colors. So I find it super helpful. I've always loved having a color wheel. I painted one for myself and had that up on the wall for the longest time. But now I've just got one of these, so I use this all the time. It's nice to move it around and look at the different options. So those are mostly the things that, I will talk about one more thing. If you're just getting into painting, one of the best things to clean your brushes is the Masters Brush Cleaner and Preserver. I bought this probably like 10 years ago, maybe more, and it still isn't gone. I've used quite a bit. It's getting smaller. So I just put my brush in here. I put a little bit of water on it. I put it in here, and then I take it out and I just rub it in there for a bit to get the soap on it, and then I rub it on my palm. And I rinse off the water and I keep rubbing it. I, rinse the brush, put more soap on it. I do that until there's no color coming out of the brush anymore. And then I will also hold the brush, I'll show you, in between my index and thumb finger with the paint, and I'll just wiggle it a little bit to get it up into this area by the cover, I guess, like where the brush bristles go into the brush. It's most important to try to keep paint out of there, because getting paint into there is what's going to cause your bristles to separate on the brush. So best to try to keep that clean and not overload your brush. But I'll move it around and then I'll rinse it, and then I'll shape the brush and let it set and dry. But this thing is a lifesaver. It's cleaned out so many of my brushes. Absolutely love it. And so those are the tools that I use for my drawing and my painting. And in the next video, I will tell you a little bit about the tools and processes that I use for my clay work.